Beth, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Well, there you go. I had to hit the right thing on my end.
We are excited. This is our first interview podcast, if you will. And we're going to be focusing on athletes and health professions.
Okay.
So can you basically take us through what you do on a day-to-day basis as a CEO?
I'd be happy to.
Healthcare Access.
Yeah, and just for a little context for all the students, Healthcare Access, it's like a primary care clinic. We would be similarly sized to a clinic that has 3 providers, so that's 3 doctors or 3 nurse practitioners leading a support team to care for patients as their primary care health home. And I'm the CEO. And the reason we have a CEO position is because we are a not-for-profit clinic caring for the poor who do not have health insurance. So that ends up that makes my day a little different from, say, some of the student athletes' primary care clinics that they're used to growing up in and getting annual physicals. So my job, I've got 3 big prongs to my job. And the first one I'm going to talk about is different. So I have to work on revenue development. And that's a big part of my day. 3 things I work on: revenue development, strategic positioning for our clinic, and the third thing is I'm the human resources leader too.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So revenue development for us is I have to work on donor relations. I help support a staff person where we're looking at what grants do we have or do we go after or manage. And when I say grants, that includes block grants from the state, from the county. I have to work on being at and being a cheerleader for events we do. And I need to spend time every day understanding where we are on our budget. So I put all that together as revenue cycle. Strategic positioning, that's where I have to spend time kind of dealing with questions of who do we want to be, or who have we said we're going to be 5 years from now. So I lead strategic planning processes, both with staff and with key partners in the community and our board. And we do have a board. Most family practice offices don't have a board, but we have a board, so that's part of what I manage. In strategic positioning, I need to look at, do we have the best information systems available for our staff? Who are we collaborating with? Are we leveraging collaboration relationships so that we can do more of what we do? And this is also where I put, Kara, all of the things we have to do with around space. Is our clinic big enough? Are we in the right location? Do we need to have services off-site? So the third area is running our human resources systems, and that's about creating a great place to work and volunteer. So that has to do with culture. It has to do with good performance review systems. So people don't run around saying, what am I supposed to do and how are you going to give me feedback as to whether or not I'm doing the right thing? So those 3 buckets are what fill my day as an administrator in an independent primary care center.
Okay, excellent. So take us back to when you were a student athlete here at KU. Yep. Track and field hockey, correct?
Right, very good.
Okay, so how did you get interested in working in the healthcare field?
I'll tell you, it was a pretty simple equation for me. When I did one of those, just so that the students feel, I changed my majors after my freshman year, so changing majors is a normal thing. And actually a senior, and it helped me think about it. I said, you know, I like business, but I like people more than numbers. And she said, you should go into personnel administration. So I flipped my major. KU it was then called personnel administration. It probably has, that name has probably evolved today. So back then we were in the political science school department, but most of our classes were in the B school. So I knew I was a people person. I can tell you unequivocally that in my case, I got my first job because I was an athlete on teams.
Wow.
The J.C. Penney Company was building a brand new catalog distribution center in Kansas City. And they were run, a lot of the guys that ran, they had 4 distribution centers across the country. They had been athletes in college. Their theory was if you have been in sports on teams, you know how to work with a team.
Love it.
In the work. So I was on 2 teams, and they came recruiting from our state schools. I think that's interesting and relevant to students at the University of Kansas. And those 2 things put together, hopefully aside with a few qualities I possessed, got me my first job. So I will tell you that as a student athlete, even back in the 70s, and I think our students are much more challenged with the demands of sports today than they were in my day. But you learned about the value of team, about other folks. You got to have time that was up close and personal in a way to learn about more people and people that weren't necessarily just like you. And I had to, even back then, make choices around what was important to me. Did I want to play? Did I want to be on the track team in field hockey and travel? Or did I want to stay with the orchestra? I had to make a choice. And as much as I like my violin, I couldn't do both.
Right.
So even being a student athlete as something in addition to getting a degree, you learn to make choices and you learn to work with other people. So those are 2 biggies, and they're still relevant today.
Excellent. Okay. So you feel like that has shaped your experience, or being a student athlete has shaped your experience now in the working world? Do you still rely? I mean, you said it a little bit. You still rely on those same skills that you learned in college.
You know, absolutely, absolutely. I will tell you that when I was thinking about a question around what did you build on from college, or what might I wish I knew today that I didn't know then, I would say to you that the trajectory of my career, every single step along the way and every role I had was developmental. I learned something. I can be here. This was in 1977, and along the way I picked up 2 more masters. I don't have any regrets. And so I'm fortunate to have just been in situations where I always learned. And a couple of the things that I think are critically important that I didn't know when I left KU, they didn't become barriers for me, but what I didn't know that I would say to any of our student athletes, a couple of things. The importance of a mentor. They weren't talking about mentors in 1977. They didn't talk about choose your first job knowing that someone's going to show you the way. And, oh, by the way, you aren't yet ready to figure it all out on your own. So you need a mentor.
Exactly.
And you know, that may be important. I know that our student athletes today, they have expectations, they've had experiences that are very different from me. But their talents, people have nurtured those talents and tried to take barriers out of their way. So a spirit of appreciation and gratitude is huge, and that will get you a long way. I don't know where our students are today in that field, but a spirit of gratitude and appreciation, man, people that are older latch onto that like nobody's business, as opposed to overly confident and the world rotates around me.
Okay.
So that's huge. And we didn't talk about those kind of things back in the 70s. You guys may do that today. Mm-hmm. The other thing I would say to student athletes that wasn't laid out for me back in the day is that money and personal power in those, especially in those initial jobs, they're really secondary to relationships and making a good choice for yourself that you know it aligns with your values and your sense of what you want to do today. And our student, your sense of what they want to do today may change, and it may change radically. But knowing that where you're headed, you've got someone that's going to be your mentor, and that it aligns to what's important to you is terribly important. And money is not unimportant, especially knowing that kids have a lot of debt. Some of our student athletes carry probably a lot of debt. It's not unimportant, but it's secondary.
Right. So relationships should be the focus when you're starting your career.
Absolutely. And if that's the start and the focus, it will always be significant and important. But if we know that from the get-go, we just become a much more valuable employee and mature participant. The sooner we know that, the greater value you'll have in your organization.
I love that. So one really good way that we can start building relationships is with our athletes in healthcare, career community that we're having September 28th from 6 to 7 in Hadel Auditorium. And we're going to have other former athletes like yourself who are working in some way, shape, or form in the healthcare industry, alongside some faculty that are working in common majors that people would major in to go into the health field.
Right.
We're excited about that. We're excited that you're going to be there to represent track and field and field hockey.
You know, I'm truly excited to be there, and because anything I can do to participate in conversations with our students, just to answer questions or share with them what my learned, lived experiences are, I love the opportunity to do that. And, you know, I have to just share with y'all, I read in the paper this week that a former field hockey player who was a couple years younger than me just got identified as a distinguished alum from the School of Liberal Arts and Sciences.
Wow.
Which is also where my degree, undergraduate degree, was from. So, you know, our student athletes go on to do great things. And for her, she even owned a piece apparently of a women's NBA team. So pretty incredible stuff out there.
Very cool. So what I loved from what you said today was you learned as a student athlete being a value of the value of being in a team, learning about people from different cultural backgrounds and making choices and being authentic to who you are. Yep. The relationships, if you go into your work prioritizing relationships, everything else seems to fall into place and you'll have a meaningful career trajectory.
Absolutely. You summed that up very nicely.
Love it. Well, again, we're excited to have you on September 28th. Thank you for your time today. This is awesome. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you and having you around again soon.
Yeah, I'll be there. I'll try to bring a friend or two that can knows more than I do about getting that first job.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.